This is Jay Martin.
All right, we're going to jump right into this because I want to give everybody ample opportunity to speak about any companies you're looking at, metals you're looking at, so it's going to be quite rapid fire. First though, all of you were here last year, and so could you comment on the sentiment shift, if you've seen one? I have. If you've seen one, 12 months ago, we were on this stage, bit of a different feel in the industry versus today. Any thoughts on what's changed?
Well, I think I've actually been doing some research on this as well regarding what I think it's happening even with the majors. I think most of the major companies are starting to move a little bit away from gold itself and looking for critical metals as a way to deploy capital. We've seen this a little bit. If you look at the average production for gold producers has been in a multi-year decline. So you've seen sort of most of the focus more, instead of just gold only projects, more into some level of critical metals now too. So I don't know if that speaks to the level of a sentiment that has been shifting away. I think there was very similar case back in the 70s that happened in a somewhat of a similar way, but different reasons. Today we have the green metals. When we talk to institutional allocators, I think the thing that comes out the most is it's very interesting what you guys are doing in the discovery of precious metals, but what are you doing in terms of critical metals? And I think that part of it is certainly attracting a lot of attention. I think ultimately or perversely, this move away from gold is actually quite positive for the overall industry, not negative. And I'm happy to expand on that too, but that's to me it speaks to maybe what the sentiment in conferences are as well. It's a lot of interest in critical metals. No doubt, critical metals have different definitions in different parts of the world. Some of them include copper, nickel, or other things, and so it's been. I think that will continue to be the case for a while, but it's perversely will be very positive for the gold space, in my opinion.
I think what I would say about sentiment change is more macro. I think at the beginning of last year, we all wanted to be excited because there were fundamental reasons for base metals, but there were too many questions. Like the inflation question was a major overhang. Nobody knew. I mean, it had reared up in such a dramatic way. We didn't know how that was going to play out. I mean, there's still questions, but there were a lot of questions. 2022 answered a lot of questions. I mean, every year does, I guess. But I think it solidified the spot that we're in, which is we've had the first half or the first, whatever you want to call it, of the overall stock market decline. I think we've transitioned away from the crazy speculative tech-focused investing that has that good analog in the tech bubble. And we're moving through the recession, whatever the details of that end up looking like. And coming out the other side, people love real assets. They love to position ahead of the bottom, which is what gold is, right? I think there's more solid reason for this to work now because a bunch of those macro questions played out in 2022.
Interesting. Brent?
I think with respect to this conference in particular, which I've been coming to when your dad was running it as well, it's always positive in Vancouver in January. And generally, probably 8 out of 10 times, as March, April roll around and everything kind of drops. This year, I think it's finally going to change. I think we're, the macro that they've laid out, the dearth in new discoveries and the necessity of mining companies to replace their reserves is real. And I think we're going to see generally a pretty good year. And I think just by the number of people that were here yesterday that I'm seeing out there, the interest is back. I'm looking forward to a positive year. And this conference here, I think, is got a good example of it.
I love that. Okay, let's get into some picks. And Gwen Preston, author of The Resource Maven, we'll start with you. What are you looking at?
So, I mean, I always tell people to know what they're trying to do. We're entering, I agree that we're entering into a reliable commodities moment, like metals moment. I think base metals are very well positioned. There's some that are better than others. Like I really love copper and I really love silver, which I consider a base metal in this context. And I like gold. And so those are the ones that I'm leaning into harder than, say, nickel or zinc. I mean, nickel has its thing. Lithium could still be very exciting, but I choose the ones that I like the most. I think everyone wants to do that, and I think everyone should also decide, what do you want to do? Do you want to take on high-risk explorers who could do really well, but we'll have to wait until we get a strong enough market for the rising tide to lift all ships? Or do you want a little bit safer in your bets, right? Because if you are confident that silver is going to do well, then you could choose a more advanced silver story and not worry about whether the drill result hits or not. So I always like to lay that groundwork out, because we love this space, and especially Brent and I are happy to pick really high-risk explorers, but that's not the right pick for everybody. All that said, Ridgeline Minerals is one that I really like. I think they're really into a new, exciting discovery in Nevada. It's a whole spectrum. They're very capital conscious. They didn't do all the drilling that they've wanted to do. There's a lot of discovery yet to play out in that space. On the gold front, I mean, if I want to give, that's a discovery story, so that's the high risk end. On the more advanced end of things, Orezone. I mean, Bombore is just starting. If you want a gold pick that's got if you want exposure to the commodity plus the bonus of a re-rate, then you want some catalyst. And their mine is just getting going, and I think it's going to shine because that's the team that's there, and that's the way the data's looking. So I think that's another one that's got a really good re-rate and that leverage to gold.
Love that. Thank you, Gwen. Tavi, over to you. Crescat Capital, what are you looking at?
We just closed a large silver deal recently, which should be announced soon, which I think it's one of the major focuses for Crescat. It's been looking for silver deals. This is going to be a producing story with one of the highest silver intercepts for a new discovery about 40 kilometers away from the main asset. This will be reviewed soon. That's probably our biggest focus as of late. I think outside of this is going to be, I'm not going to say the name.
That was a non-pick, Tavi. What's going on?
Can't say it, but some people can research and they will figure it out.
I know what it is.
Yeah, he knows what it is. It's out there if you look it up. I just can't talk about it. But the second thing would be probably Brazilian assets. I'm very bullish on Brazil in general. I think Brazil has a very strong correlation with the commodity cycle. I've been studying that for a while now, and Brazilian been a total skeptic about the space for a real long time. It's the first time I turned bullish on it. We've been looking for a lot of names in that space. Altamira is certainly one of them. It looks to be sort of a similar deposit to Snowline Gold. It's a story that already has resources as well, but the real price is on the new discoveries that they have. We think that they have, and so that's one name. Pacific Ridge, I think, is very cheap. Just my opinion. They're onto a unique porphyry discovery, gold and copper porphyry in Canada, and so it's another one that we think that could be doing very well. Barksdale right now recently it's been getting a lot of progress in getting their permits. I think if they do, this could be a real outstanding story. I mean, they've got the best part of likely of the Taylor deposit. EMX just had a discovery very close to their ground, which is likely to be extending to their side as well. So it's a lot of interesting ramifications from that. But the Brazilian assets is something I'm very very excited about. I think we're going to see something similar to what we saw in the early 2000s, which is despite this move from Lula and the president leadership that we've had recently, which I think it's on the net basis is negative, but on the positive side is if you look at the commodity producers globally, the correlation with Brazilian equities is undeniable, and so it's hard for us to not be deploying capital there. There's more to this, but this is the short answer.
I appreciate that, Tavi. And Brent Cook, Exploration Insights. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Tavi on Brazil. I think that's a great place to be looking at and investing in mines. I think I own Bravo Mining, which is a nickel PGM project that's getting larger. The instructions you sent to me was pick 3 companies at the show.
Correct. I know some people broke the rules. It's fine.
So I'll stick to that. And this is what Joe Mazumdar and I at Explorations focus on, is early stage exploration. That's really where I want to stay. And I think the first company, and I own this, I'm actually a technical advisor, is Headwater Gold. Focused on the Great Basin, Idaho, Nevada, and Oregon. They've got a fantastic joint venture with Newcrest, putting in up to earn all the way into 75%, they've got to spend $145 million and produce a pre-feasibility study, and that's on 4 projects. One they just drilled, Spring Creek, or Peak, hit some nice high-grade epithermal veins at depth, and as it goes deeper, it's going to get better. The one project they own 100%, Katy, I'm very keen on. That's right on the Idaho-Oregon border. Again, another grassroots exploration play. They're going to be drilling it this summer. I think that's got a real shot. Second company that I own again is Radius Gold, RDU. Great explorationists, again, turning up grassroots ideas, not going in and picking up old, tired dogs. And they've got joint venture with Fresnillo on Plata Verde, which has just released some metallurgic results, which are excellent. They've got a joint venture with Pan American Silver on a silver gold shoots that are looking good. They're dealing with Pan American right now, so I don't know how it's going to play out. And they've got some really nice discoveries in Guatemala, which is kind of a shit show. I think it's going to get better, but until then, nothing happens there. But I think that's one I like as well. And a third one I looked at just yesterday, Montage Gold over in Cote d'Ivoire. Great team. They've got a large 3.5 million ounce resource at about 0.6 grams. That by itself is not exciting, but what they've been finding nearby are some high grade showings, and they've drilled some nice holes into it. If they can pull some resources out of that, that's the starter pitch for the whole thing, and it gets big enough towards the 4 or 5+ million ounce range that a major's going to buy. So those are the 3 here at the show that I like.
I love that.
Can I add one thing on Montage? I love Montage.
You can add something.
And the ground, that the prospects that they're looking at, what's cool is that they've had lots of work done. But the majors who had them didn't find the scale in any particular one to pursue, but there's so much data that they're not starting from scratch on this new ground. There's like a bunch of low-hanging fruit that Brent says is very high grade, and Kone, the mine that they were planning, was already economic, and this has the potential to make it like really great, so yeah.
Love that. Thank you. Okay, I want to thank you all for joining me on stage this morning and getting in front of our audience. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay.
Give it up.
Thank you.
This is Jay Martin.